Good morning. Oh my goodness. Yes, you can hear me. That's tremendous. It's a lot more work than I would have ever expected doing all this. And as you can see, I'm having a lot of technical difficulties right now. Let me set that down. Let me ask you a question. How are you all doing? I'm going to interpret that as really, really good. Oh, okay, so that's one. What is today? I don't even know. Is it Sunday? It's hard to tell. This is the most Monday Sunday I've ever had in all of my life. It seems like every single day is the same. And really grateful to all of the people here who have come to the service and are able to do that, and especially to our volunteers who've helped get you parked and setting up all this video. And Cheryl today has been doing the liturgy, and we had Lynette in the past, and we got Lynn inside singing music. We have Dale who's playing the organ, Aaron over here, and Phil, and some stranger in a mask. I don't even know who it is. All these people are trying to make this happen for you, for us. So let's hear it for them. Now I know that some of you time the sermons. Here's where you start. That wasn't the sermon. This is the sermon. Here we go. You ready? All right. On Easter Sunday, I preached on resurrection. I said that in spite of everything going on, this is still Easter. And then on the second Sunday of Easter, Quasimodo Geniti, I preached on resurrection again. And I told you that the resurrection is real, and I even offered proof. And then last Sunday, Misericordias Domini, Good Shepherd Sunday, I preached on resurrection again. I told you that Jesus is risen in our deeds. So today's the fourth Sunday of Easter, Jubilate, and guess what I'm going to preach on? Resurrection. Why have I preached on the resurrection the last 3 Sundays? Why? Why am I preaching on the resurrection again today? Because we all need something uplifting in our lives right now. Every Sunday that we have met in this parking lot, I've preached a positive, inspirational, uplifting message on resurrection. Can I get an amen to that? Okay. Because this is Easter. Resurrection is real, and I can prove it to you. Jesus is risen in the deeds of people all around us. He is risen. He is risen indeed. I am preaching on the resurrection because we all need some joy in our lives right now. Turn on the TV, if you dare. You're going to find almost nothing but people falling into poverty, new infections, and more death. And go on the internet, and you'll find worse things. It's almost all pseudoscience and conspiracy theories and religious nonsense. Did any of you see that preacher who tried to blow COVID-19 away with his breath? Yeah, I saw it. And as a preacher myself, I find that pretty depressing. I'm offering an alternative here. I think that we need something to be joyful about now. We need some joy in our lives. Joy in our hearts. Just before he was crucified, Jesus said this to his disciples. He said, "You have sorrow now, but I'll see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you." What Jesus was talking about was the joy that the disciples would have in the resurrection. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about resurrection joy. Are you ready to be joyful? Yeah. The sun's shining in Northeast Ohio. Amazing. But first we got to start with the bad news. Like any good Lutheran, I got to preach law and gospel. So here's the bad news. The world is a mess. The world world is certainly a mess right now. I mean, that's a reality. And I'll go you one further. Life is usually a mess. I mean, what is life but a series of problems? If you need to have some theological phrase supporting what I'm saying, here it is. Original sin. The fall of creation. We live in a fallen world and we live fallen lives. What does Genesis say? Raising children is going to be hard. You're going to have fights with your spouse. The ground is going to be hard and it won't take the seed. Crops won't grow. And a lot of your work is going to be unproductive. And in the end, guess what? You're going to die. You are dust, and to the dust you will return. Genesis chapter 3. But you didn't really need the Bible to tell you that life is hard, did you? I mean, you know that life is full of problems. No sooner have you solved one problem than another problem pops up. Any of you who have had 2 children know exactly what I'm talking about. Most of the time you're handling several problems at once. I mean, the car broke down and your arthritis is flaring up and your son-in-law joined some kind of weird cult. And now we got this coronavirus thing. Last Wednesday night it was announced that Berea has canceled all of its summer events and it won't be opening its public pool. That stinks. Just ask my 10-year-old daughter. She can't believe it. Now there's two ways that people usually handle the fact that life is hard, that life has problems. And the first way is to simply accept the status quo. I mean, some people accept the status quo because they think it's to their advantage, and so they actively work to maintain it. Look, we've always done it this way, I like it this way, and this way works for me. And then there's other people who accept the status quo because they think it's impossible to change it. I mean, you can't really fight City Hall, can you? It's hopeless. Better just to get along, go along. Accepting the status quo is the way of the conservative. Now, I'm not using a political term here. I'm using a very literal term. Whether through active support or depressed resignation, the conservative conserves, maintains the status quo. But we all know that the status quo is a problem. Life is a problem. One problem after the next, in fact. The status quo never delivers any lasting happiness. Never. No lasting joy. Just when you have record unemployment, right? I mean, everybody's working. The unemployment level is as low as maybe we've ever seen in this country. And then a virus comes, and it puts 30 million people out of work. Jeez, that's the status quo. That isn't the stuff of happiness. That isn't the stuff of joy. Okay, the second way that people usually handle the fact that life is difficult and has problems is the way of the revolutionary. The revolutionary thinks, well, if we just change this thing, if we just enact this policy, if we just elect this person instead of that one, if we just silence those people over there, if we just end this particular oppression, if we just change those minds, then all will be well in the world. But not 1 minute before. Well, I think you could probably see the problems there. I mean, things don't always get fixed. So that means that the revolutionary person is never happy. No joy. But let's say by some miracle something does get fixed. What if the revolutionary actually succeeds in accomplishing all the things that their little bleeding hearts desire? Well, that won't be good enough, will it? Because other problems will pop up. So either way, the revolutionary is not happy. No joy. What I'd like to do today is suggest a third alternative. The third way is the way of the rebel. And that is a very different way. Because the rebel rejects the status quo. So the rebel is not a conservative. But the rebel isn't a revolutionary either. The rebel doesn't have any dreams of a utopia. The rebel has no illusions that they'll be happy one day once all of the problems are solved. No. No. The rebel finds joy in the fact that there are problems to solve. The rebel finds joy in the struggle itself. The rebel finds satisfaction in the dissatisfactions of life. Now think about that. Think about it. Because I'm telling you, I just gave you the key to the deepest joy you could ever possibly experience. Life is full of problems. And the conservative accepts this fact, and so that makes them miserable. The revolutionary dreams of changing this fact. And guess what? That makes them miserable. But the rebel actually finds fulfillment in working on the problems. And so no matter what happens, they're joyful. If you can find satisfaction, even in the many dissatisfactions of life, that is a joy that no one can take away from you. That, I would say, is resurrection joy. Jesus told his disciples, you're going to be sorrowful now, you're going to cry, you're going to mourn, it's going to be very, very difficult, but I'll see you again. And your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you. No one. Now, some people hear this and they think, well, of course they would have joy that no one could take away from them. God raised Jesus from the dead. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess that may be true. But how long did Jesus stay with the disciples after the resurrection? I'll tell you. It was 40 days. Just a little bit over a month. And then he disappeared and went into heaven. Now tell me, what's the difference between someone dying and going to heaven and someone disappearing and going to heaven? You can't tell me the difference. You know why? Because there isn't one. When Jesus died, he went away and his disciples were sad. But after Jesus was raised, guess what? He went away again. Why wouldn't the disciples have been just as sad? The problem was exactly the same. Jesus wasn't physically with them. Here's the difference. Here's what they learned. I hope you're listening, because this is important. Problems are inevitable, but suffering is optional. I'm going to say that again. Problems are inevitable, but suffering is your choice. The disciples learned how to stop being conservatives, and they learned also how to stop being revolutionaries. They became rebels. They learned to find satisfaction right in the middle of their dissatisfaction. They found a joy that no one could take away from them. They found a resurrection joy. Because life is a series of problems. It is. I can't tell you that it won't be. As much as I'd like to, I can't. Some of you want me to tell you that the coronavirus is going to be away and gone tomorrow. It'll just disappear. Yeah, I can't say that. I can't. So what are you going to do? Are you going to stay sad and fearful and depressed? I mean, do you think that's what I want for you? Or worse, are you going to throw caution to the wind and act like nothing's wrong? Please, don't do that. Here's what I actually think you should do. I think you should be a rebel. Let me tell you, the only place that you're going to find resurrection, the only place that you're going to find new life, real, lasting joy, is in being a rebel. You had problems yesterday, you got problems today, and guess what? You're going to have problems tomorrow. Stop being so surprised at all that and start looking at it in a new way. If you didn't have any problems, you would have a real problem, because guess what? You'd be dead. So if you have a problem, then be happy, because that means you're alive. Right? If you can be happy right in the middle of your problems, that is the kind of joy that nothing can take away. That's resurrection joy. You know, the disciples, they didn't get Jesus back. They didn't. Oh, they got him back for a month, right? They got him back for a month. But then he went away again. But they still found a way to go on living. They found a way to be content. They found a way to be happy. That is resurrection joy. I want you to experience that resurrection for yourself. I mean, what other choice do you have, really? What's the alternative? Do you really want to wait for this coronavirus crisis to be over before you find any happiness? Really? You know, you could be waiting an awfully long time. And then what are you going to do when the next bad thing happens? Because it's coming. There's some other bad thing. Joy that is based on your circumstances is, oh man, it is very fleeting. It is thin. It's completely unstable. That kind of joy, you know, it comes and it goes. That kind of joy can be taken away from you in a heartbeat. And sadly, too many times it is. But the kind of joy that is not dependent on your circumstances, the kind of joy that comes from deep within, the kind of joy that comes from God, that deep resurrection joy, that's something that no one can take away from you. Nothing can take that away. So you got problems. Okay. The nation has problems. Oh, yeah, I'd say so. The whole world has problems right now. And those problems really might not go away anytime soon. They might not. but you are alive. In this moment, you are still breathing. The sun is up, even here in Northeast Ohio, which is a miracle. The birds are singing. You can still call your family on the telephone. You can still have a Zoom meeting. You can watch Netflix. And you can go to church. There's a lot of people here who have worked to make that possible. Make sure you thank them. Give them a call, send them a letter, maybe put 20 bucks in the mail. They're doing a lot of work to make this happen. You got problems, I know. I know you do. But here's the good news. You want the gospel? Here's the gospel. Here's the good news. You've got problems. That's a good thing. Because only the living have problems. As long as you are alive, you're going to have problems. So if you remember that having problems means you're alive, then you can have the kind of joy that nothing can take away. Having problems means that you have the opportunity to work on the problems. You are alive. And isn't that what resurrection is all about? I mean, being alive, isn't that what it's about? Finding joy in the resurrection doesn't mean that all of your problems are going to disappear. If all of your problems disappeared, you could be sure of only one thing. You'd be dead. So if you have problems, rejoice, because it means you're alive. If you can find joy just in being alive, right in the middle of your problems, joy even because you have problems, then I'll tell you this, nothing in all the world will be able to take that joy away from you. If you can find joy in working the problems and working on your problems, no one will be able to take that joy away. Now, I hope that you found this sermon uplifting and positive, because I only gave you the key to everlasting joy. That's it. That's all I did. God be with you.